Another sort of poetic theme for this community that we're talking about in Ontario, Canada, population 32,000. Just where you would expect the place with the continent's largest Shakespeare festival to be, Stratford is situated along the Avon River. So for folks like me, that's impressive. That's a big deal. But it was named the Avon River long before they had the Shakespeare Festival. And I believe there are two towns nearby, one called Hamlet and the other called Shakespeare. True, and they were named back in the 19th century. So it tells you about how prescient this community is about its future. They were naming things after the Shakespeare Festival long before it actually came to town. But in addition to that, they are the richest and most productive agricultural belt in all of Canada, certainly. They are located in Ontario province, and they have a long, proud history, which has been tooling things, making things, and now retooling itself. And they've done it, I think we'll find out, 5 times by the mayor's calculation. They are now prepared, I think, very, very adequately for the digital age. They have, again, been very, very aware that a renaissance is needed as we move from the industrial to the post-industrial to the digital age and operate in a broadband economy. And so they have taken very, very strong steps to do that, and they've taken not small steps. Riverside was successful in taking small steps, as Mayor Loveridge said. Stratford has taken, I think, giant leaps. And again, we'll hear more about that, but they have committed themselves to building an entire industry around digital media. And they're going to leverage their culture, this tremendous Shakespeare Festival that they have, which generates about $150 million to do that. You can see it if you go to their downtown. It looks like a really hip place. It's been designated as a heritage preservation district. It has shops and cafes. There's a chef's school there. And you can sense that there's a creative and cultural class working alongside an industrial class that is increasingly educating itself for its children as well to keep themselves in that community. So again, I think it is a community that is rebuilding itself, understands that it can get flattened very quickly if it clings to old ways, but is not going to give up its history and will keep the poetry flowing, as they say. And I think that creative element in Stratford will be the fuel for a new economy. And again, I'm looking forward to exploring that in more detail. So that's my take on Stratford. There's obviously a lot more going on there that we'll talk about. But now we'll watch a video.
Stratford may look like many other towns in southern Ontario.
I think that Stratford's different in that we've been blessed with visionary leaders and leaders that have a big idea.
The city of Stratford is a unique place. They're always reinventing themselves. They're always looking forward to the future, where they're going.
I believe there's a buzz in the city of Stratford, respecting the past but also moving forward in the future.
I often get asked, how did Stratford become such an intelligent city?
I guess we should ask ourselves, why did it work 50 years ago in Stratford?
Tom Patterson had a big idea to start a Shakespeare Festival in a small town in Ontario. It was such an unlikely idea, but it was enormously successful.
What we do here that is dramatically different is we find a way to reinvent ourselves. Fiber optic cable is the railway of today, and it needed the special treatment of being a municipal asset.
Our network of 60 kilometers of fiber optics has grown to include connectivity to 300 access points. These access points provide wireless connectivity to all Wi-Fi enabled devices for visitors, for citizens, for workers within the city of Stratford.
The high-speed data communications that's available here in Stratford allows us to connect to any of the systems anywhere we operate around the world. Our people like working here, they like living here.
What makes innovation possible is that all the residents of Stratford support you and people in their endeavors. It's that Stratford way of life.
We chose Stratford as our home base for Power Needle because it had a number of elements in the ecosystem for us. One was the business community, secondly the technical community, thirdly the creative community, and finally the financial community that could be there to support us.
You work together and you collaborate and you make things happen.
RBC is Canada's largest financial institution, and we're extremely excited to be here in Stratford building our world-class back office support facility. It will be a 350,000 square foot building and approximately $400 million investment here in the community of Stratford.
The RBC selection of Stratford speaks so much to the future of our community, to know that they believe that we're the place to make such a large investment.
Stratford is a learning city.
Virtual learning for students was not available a few short years ago, and now it's available for students who go to high school in Stratford and who go to high school anywhere in the world.
BiblioCommons uses Web 2.0 techniques to make it easier for people to find things that they're looking for.
And we were the first with online learning.
We were the second in the world to go live with BiblioCommons. We've been able to take advantage of lots of opportunities, for example, ebooks.
Because we've always had people willing to step forward to the front, to lead, to do things that are a little different.
The University of Waterloo Stratford campus is focused on research and education in the digital media and future-focused space. Together, the Stratford campus and the Stratford Institute are two powerhouse brands bringing global research, education, and talent generation to the city of Stratford.
I have immense pride in this community. It overwhelms me every day when I read about the achievements we've had in the past and what our bright future looks like.
What we're bringing to Stratford is a unique opportunity for the youth in Stratford to actually stay here, to get their education here.
The Stratford Shakespeare Festival has a real strong connection with the community of Stratford. Today we're able to offer rich media content on our website, things like interviews, clips from our plays, behind the scenes, into the scene shop, into the costume shops.
Well, Stratford, as a rural community, competes head-to-head with the larger centres such as Toronto for healthcare talent. As such, we have to really be punching above our weight. CSTAR allows us to link directly in with healthcare professionals in London from a telementoring perspective to help coach and mentor our staff here. Well, imaging is one of the most advanced areas when it comes to e-health. A patient can come into Seaforth, can have an ultrasound. The radiologist in Stratford will read that ultrasound, and then that information from the radiologist is immediately available to the physician in Seaforth. For healthcare organizations to be successful, they've really got to be able to move information from place to place. Stratford's investment in broadband technology has allowed us to do that beautifully.
Stratford needs to continue reinventing itself. We've done it with so many other things, from railway to manufacturing to theatre arts and now digital media.
It's a tapestry. It's a tapestry of amazing individuals.
Stratford has the opportunity to go anywhere they want.
But you have to be fearless in taking risks.
And things happen in Stratford that don't happen in many other communities across Canada or across an international stage.
It's about diversity and innovation.
Stratford is setting an example for other cities to follow.
And we're all passionate about it.
Well, good afternoon, Your Worship.
Thanks, Lou.
Welcome. Passion. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's part of the community. I saw you getting a little teary-eyed in that last clip. You could have walked on that thrust stage at the Shakespeare Festival and probably done the last act. But that's symptomatic of people who love their home. But it's also, I think, there's a certain creative element to that as well, to be able to express your feelings, and that's something that's not unfamiliar. There's something in a creative culture that produces an individual who is not afraid. You had a kid, I think he was 15 or 16 years old. He used to sit in front of the Avon Theater, strumming a guitar with a
Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, I'm sorry, I was going to make that mistake. Cup out there, right, looking for a little change. Went home, I guess, a couple of times, put it up on YouTube, and eventually sold out Madison Square Garden in 16 seconds a few years later. You want to tell us a little bit about that Stratford resident?
Yeah, it's a funny story, but this whole conference is about broadband connectivity, and it doesn't matter what size of the community you're in. And Stratford's a good example. 4 years ago, Justin Bieber was busking out front of the Stratford Festival, the Avon Theater, having people listen to his music. And his mom clipped some videos, put them on YouTube, and somebody sent a message to a recording artist executive in Atlanta, Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun watched this video, thought it was great, tracked down that kid. Today he has over 10,178,000 followers on Twitter and controls 4% of the world's traffic. He happens to be back in Stratford today, and I actually had the opportunity to talk to him through a text message on the phone. And at about 2:16 today, to give you an idea of the power of social media, he sent out the following tweet, which is, "My hometown is one of top 7 smart cities in the world. Mayor," and then he put my hashtag for my Twitter account, "in New York City, and going for number 1, proud of my people." And he put intelligentcommunity.org and the hashtag on Twitter for ICF. 21 minutes later, I had 411 new followers on Twitter.
I love it. I love it.
So, you know, if you don't think this conference is relevant to where the economy is headed, not only in the economy of business, but also in the creative class, you've missed the point altogether.
Well, that's
so
right.
There's Justin Bieber
That's
for us.
right. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I guess you're reelected now.
Yeah, I guess, eh?
And
well, we do vote on, you know, we actually held our election online last year. There was no ballots. There was no voters box. It was online or through the phone. So if those young 12-year-old girls in Portugal could vote online, I'm in.
I know it.
There you go.
But maybe they'll all send in $25 to ICF that could help us with our fundraise, because we'll take money from any place in the world. If where that economy is headed, I mean, it's a great place to start. You and I have talked about the renaissance again that's taking place in Stratford, as it is in many communities. As you head into the new economy and the Justin Biebers and the people using the social media, but also using the new railroad, as we call it, begin to emerge, you have had to take a look at where your community was and where it needed to go. You obviously hit some bumps there, but why don't you just tell us briefly about the bumps, and then from that, how you decided to take the direction that I outlined a little bit at the podium.
Sure. Well, you know, Stratford, for many people, as you said, Lou, is in the heart of agricultural community in North America. And in Perth County, where we're part of, it's the largest agricultural productive county in all of Canada. Generates 1.8 million a day in farm gate receipts. Huge. So we've had agriculture, and in the 1880s, had great railway, Grand Trunk, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific. We're fixing locomotives there. And things couldn't be any better. We get into the 1920s, we get some furniture manufacturing. You gave the stat yesterday of 25% of Canada's furniture was made in Stratford for a period. And as we roll through, things seem like they're really good. We go through the post-war era, though, and in 1950, Grand Trunk Railway and Canadian National let everyone know, hey, we're closing the shops here. 20,000 people lived in Stratford. 2,000 of them worked in that shop. So talk about economic collapse coming. And a guy by the name of Tom Patterson had a vision. And he went to city council and he said, would you give me $100? And this is a true story. Will you give me $100 to go to New York? I want to see Alec Guinness and Tyrone Guthrie at the Algonquin, and I want to try to get them to come to Stratford. The mayor at the time, Wolf Gregory, just died at 99 years of age a couple months ago, said, I was just in New York, you can't go for $100, we'll give you $125. And they did that because nobody at the time had a plan of where they were going to go. So they said, let's throw it at it. So they gave him, Tom comes back, he gets Alec Guinness and Tyrone Guthrie to come, adds Tanya Mosevich, and you know what, 59 seasons later, we opened on Monday night. You've given the stat $150 million of GDP and 3,000 direct and indirect jobs. Taxation-wise, $65 million a year in taxes to the 3 levels of governments, according to the Conference Board of Canada, are generated from that. So that's a resurgence and renaissance. Then in the 60s, we get into manufacturing, and we're humming along, we're making things, we're doing great things with the auto parts, and it hits a little bump in the early 80s, and furniture starts to die out too. Furniture hits the skids, we lose all our furniture factories in the 80s, we go deeper into automotive, and then we bring in some Japanese people. When they start coming to North America with Cambridge, with Toyota, we start supplying them, and things seem to pick up again. You know, we start to see a further decline in manufacturing. We bring in aerospace. And in 2006, we hosted a summit in Stratford for the Southwest Economic Alliance, which is all across the region. And Mayor Francis is here from Windsor. He was a major part of that too. All came together to say, across this region, what are we going to do? And it was at that time, you know, we had our strategic plan that said Stratford had to be a community of excellence with worldwide impact that was, as you saw, dramatically different from everywhere else. And we decided that this fiber optic loop that we had put in the city and that we had during the late 1990s when other communities across Ontario were allowed to sell their hydro assets, we went out and bought the assets of 6 other communities. We took those dividends and we started plowing them back into the infrastructure within our own community. We had this great fiber loop and decided that we needed to get into the creative class, bring all the cultural aspects of Stratford and all the great things we have with regards to creative individuals and manufacturing, bring them together with the economy headed. And
So you felt you had your infrastructure in place at that point?
No, you know what? We didn't have all our infrastructure in place. We had a good basis. You know, until you monetize the fiber optics, you have nothing. And you know, many communities say, we've got fiber. Well, what are you doing with it? You know, are you making a difference with fiber? So we started to monetize it and started using it as a filter for how we were going to make decisions. So we started to talk about broadband access, you know, for all the schools to be wired up. We started to wiring up all the city work sites. We started making sure we were running fiber to industrial parks. We've now started to fiber to home. We're talking about running our own TV station through there. We're now talking about our own phone service, or have the MOU in place. We started to do much of these things because we realized the filter of monetizing what we had and actually putting it into use. It's one thing to have it. You know, we also spent $80 million on storm and sanitary sewer upgrades, and by 2014, we'll spend another $15 million doubling our hydro capacity, because as much as broadband's the future railway, hydro is going to be just as important. And you know, you put all that together, and you start saying, okay, now we can go after those large industries or those connectivity industries that are going to require not only access to the pipe, but also the power to drive it. And you know, with that, we've got growth potential. We've got enough land for the next 40 years, and it's serviced out. We've got the capacity, and people in Stratford now say, okay, we're ready to take on the world. And they've accepted debt as part of the equation, because they realize you can't have part of your city not serviced properly for the benefit of some and not all.
They accept that debt, but you now have a plan. And so you've pretty much evolved from the infrastructure part of this toward a plan that, you know, again, can be like that trip to New York to get Sir Alec Guinness, a little bit uncharted. You know, you're talking about that digital media industry. Now, you've not really done that before. That's kind of a new invention for you, right? It really is. It's like getting $125 together. By the way, that wouldn't get you on the toll now. But it's like putting $125 together, coming here and hoping that you can get a world-class performer to come up and eventually lead you to 150 million GDP. How do you look at that? Because there's a bit of a risk there.
Yeah, there's a lot of a risk. You know, telling residents we're going to put $4.5 million into land and 10 to the University of Waterloo and have them bring their digital media school to Stratford. Some people said, that's great, but what's it mean? So we backed it up with data. We had Deloitte and Touche do an economic impact study that showed people the first year they hit their 500 students, there's $43 million in economic benefit. And as that grows, so does that benefit grow. And then people who work in the service sector in Stratford say, I get it, you know, because they're going to eat in my restaurant, they're going to buy my goods, and all of a sudden you start telling that story. And it also leverages out. Collaboration is a wonderful thing, and this is what ICF's about. You know, we put 10 in, the province said we'll put 10 in. I said yesterday, you know, we then got $5 million from the federal government towards being a center of excellence for digital media, and $10 million from the Open Text Corporation, who believed in the vision their CEO Tom Jenkins believed in. So you start to do that, and then you say, okay, it's one thing to have that, but you have the quality of life. Do you have all the other key indicators people look for? And somebody is enjoying a phone call. See, so you start to have that.
Justin calling again.
Yeah, Justin. It's not me, I can tell you that. So the next piece is, you know, the hospital was our next piece. You know, you got to have health care. That's one of the #1 drivers we found when we talked to people, is they worry about their health care and quality of life. So when the hospital started talking about doing a major redevelopment, and John Brennan here is their director of IT, he's with me, and I'm going to touch on how many people are with me, but all of a sudden when we spend $65 million to redevelop to a regional health care center, IT became the basis of it. And the broadband connectivity that we had now becomes the basis. We asked doctors, what do you need? They said, I want to be able to look at a file in my office and be able to quickly look at it and send a script back to the hospital or over somewhere else. And now we got 85% of our doctors using the connectivity piece of our broadband network, and they're doing all those things. Stratford is the center of 4 other hospitals. They send their information into us, we send it back out. We've recruited 23 doctors in the past 2 years because of the value of the technology we put in place. Right. And well, I could think of it, if all the people that are here to support Stratford, I think we've got a large contingent. 19 people have come down with us from private sector, from government institutions such as the hospital and others to support us. And I just wouldn't mind recognizing them because they're all part of the reason we're here. So
raise your hands if you're for Stratford. Very good.
So you get an idea of the support we have as we go into this.
Who the hell's running the city?
The lady in my office that runs it every other time.
Very good. I mean, obviously what you're doing with your healthcare industry or cluster also impacts digital media, right? Yep. But it also does something else, which I believe I was told that one of the reasons that the Japanese automakers made their move into Stratford was because of the healthcare that you actually provided at the time. Yep. Now you're talking about a new class of workers. You're going to be locating the University of Waterloo campus, interestingly enough, where the old railroad used to terminate, right?
Exactly.
But that will be producing for you the knowledge workers. That will be the factory floor for the new knowledge workers. What are you going to be doing for them in terms of laying in the sort of the cultural infrastructure? And what kind of jobs do you envision coming out of that university once it's up and running, which I think is going to be in a couple of years, right?
Well, it's up and running now with the Masters of Digital Innovation and Masters of Business and Entrepreneurship and Technology, and those are classes of less than 50. But when they have the Global Business, Global Media course, which starts a year September, that'll start to churn them out. First thing we did is we created an ecosystem for them. We worked with Golden Triangle Angel Network in Kitchener, Waterloo, who's been very successful and brought them into Stratford, and we're getting them to hold meetings. So we're getting all of a sudden the investors that are going to help foster the growth, we're getting them in. We've started a small business incubation center as part of our strategy so that we can give business counseling and ideas to young students. We've got, as you alluded to yesterday, we've got a great cultural class with a symphony and a museum and an art gallery. We've got all those things, and then we've started getting into volunteer opportunities. And on Monday, we had the Governor General of Canada in Stratford talking about how in the new economy, volunteerism and philanthropy are going to be two key levers of the modern community going forward to help supply all the things you're going to need. And that's the hallmark of a modern community in his research and ours. And it's neat because on last Saturday, we started the National Digital Media High School Awards for all of Canada, and we called them the Digis. And last Saturday night was the inaugural event, and a grade 10 student won for Best Animation, had a 4.5-minute movie that he animated at home on his own PC and won the award. And it was supported by Fanshawe College. President Howard Rundle's here. You know, that type of collaboration across colleges and universities outside of Stratford's community, but a partner in it, has started to create this. And, you know, today we just agreed that we're going to actually next year start in January going across the country trying to gain more submissions. We had 250 entrants this year. We hope to have 2,500 entrants next year. And we're trying to create this whole concept that, you know, there's an ecosystem there. Now, what are the jobs? Well, the jobs are going to be places like RBC that's building their, as they call it, significant back office support center. Average people call it a data center. Scotiabank's already there with their national mortgage center. We started to look at things such as Power Noodle, the great app that they have. They've started to take on new employees. Conceptual Pathways. We have a complete health and safety company that does everything online for over 18 different countries around the world, do health and safety training online. The festival's starting to stream video onto the web. All those types of things. We're starting to create those jobs, and they're not just going to be technological jobs. There are going to be other jobs. There's going to be service jobs come out of it. There's going to be jobs for translators. There's going to be jobs for accountants, and that whole supply chain system. And that's where the city will start to diversify even further. And, you know, we've got advancements in our manufacturing. We've got automated factories that are taking on more automation and teaching the skilled workers that are there what they need to do. We've got agriculture. You know, we've got farmers that plant fields of corn using GPS, and they basically just sit in there. The machine lifts up, goes down, puts the seed in. They don't really control anything anymore, and that's the business of farming.
It is. And it also leads me to another question, which is, I think our fifth criteria, as you know, is marketing and advocacy. How well do you tell your story to the rest of the world? How well do you tell it internally? Marketing to the rest of the world, advocacy internally. You've worked with OpenText to launch the Canada 3.0 conference, and you've allowed it to be done in Stratford. Like the Shakespeare Festival to Culture, do you envision Canada 3.0 as being sort of the digital Davos for North America? And what kind of an impact do you think having an event like that will have for the brand as you continue to reposition yourself as a digital media go-to place?
Well, it's funny you allude to it, Lou, is when we started Canada 3.0, which is Canada's National Digital Media Conference, we thought there's nothing more Canadian than hosting it in an arena. and it's hosted in our new recreation complex, and it takes up over 75,000 square feet of space. And it has a lecture hall format within our conference center. We have the trade floor show in one arena. We have the rink on the other one with the that we have for guest speakers. And it's really started to become the Stratford brand. And the reason it makes sense in Stratford is people leave Vancouver and Toronto, where if they went to the conference center there, they'd still have the opportunity to run back to work at lunch and do things, or they'd cut out of some of the events. When you come out to Stratford, you know, you drive that hour and a half or hour and 20 minutes out of Toronto, and you kind of take that deep breath as you come into the city and you go, okay, serenity now, I'm here. And you know, you find that the people submerge themselves in the discussions, and they start sharing the information, and they get involved in the discussion, which is going to shape the policy. And people like Bill Hutchison and iCanada, you know, we're starting now to work with them to build this model that goes around the country, that small communities can be connected, and that Stratford is going to be what people are going to equate with Shakespeare Festival, which they're going to equate with digital media. Having a Federal Center of Excellence designation as well allows us the opportunity to gain research, not only research money from SSHRC and other federal institutions, but also from other government institutions and partners, private sector partners, which are going to help build on that whole brand. And one of the other ways we did it is we decided to go after an event called Hockey Day in Canada, which has over 3.5 million viewers in Canadian television one day a year. And the reason we wanted to do it is because you bring that to your community, and CBC, our national broadcaster, puts you live on TV for 13 hours that day. And they highlight everything about your city. And one of our strategies was if we could get that, we not only give our community a great winter festival, and we've got a great hockey history, but all of a sudden we get 13 hours of free infomercial about what we're doing in our community. And they told our story better than anybody about digital media, about the Railway Furniture Festival, all those things. And at the end of that 13 hours, that was advertising we couldn't buy. And it set the stage for us to continue moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, again, that Davos image for Canada 3.0 is maybe an appropriate one, because no one ever heard of that place in Switzerland. But what it has done for the services economy there when you bring thought leaders there, as we do here, has been tremendous. We're running a little low on time, Mr. Mayor, but I can put it out to the audience for one question if anybody has one.
Bert Jackson from the Cape Cod Technology Council. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. It's quite inspiring. You obviously have a certain degree of passion about this.
We actually hooked him up to a grid.
Oh, yes.
he runs
maybe
our
you
home.
hooked him up to the coffee out back there. I liked a couple of the things that you said. One of the things you mentioned was being a community of excellence with worldwide impact, and bringing together technical, creative, and financial communities. My question for you is, what methods did you go about to bring different silos together in your community to make this happen? There's a lot of different things that have to come together to make this happen. What were some of the techniques that you used to do that? And the second question I have is, when did this Justin Bieber thing happen? Because about 1 o'clock this afternoon, the ICF site basically went down. It was like there was too much traffic. And I wondered if that's when it happened.
Well, we'll take care of that second question. Yeah, but
that was our plan.
Knocking down the silos.
Yeah. Well, knocking down the silos. First thing we did is we got everyone in the room, and when we did our strategic plan, we talked about municipal assets. They're everybody's. So, you know, what can social inclusion, what can social services gain from the fiber optic network? We have a 211 service. We've got into connectivity for people at home. What's the average worker going to do? So we created a walled garden. Everybody can get on any government website, any media website, our public libraries, school boards, websites through the city, so they can get information, because information is key. And we showed that forms the basis of what people want. So the more information we put out, the better off we are. And as we do that, the silos keep getting lower and lower. And if there's something that you can do in your silo that's going to help one over here, we've got people to collaborate and cross-pollinate ideas, where all of a sudden they go, yeah, you're right, if you do that, that'll work for me, and here's an idea back. And it's a conversation that needs everybody in the room. And we have 25 people on our ICF steering committee, not because we want to have unwieldy meetings with 25 people, but because that number of people represent the various interests in our community, and they actually help us make sure that our decisions represent broad-based thinking on the part of the city, good vision for the future and touches the lives of the people that are going to be our residents now and in the future.
We're going to have to end it, but Dan, and you, really from a personal perspective, I think you're one of the great mayors for our digital age and our intelligent community movement, and I commend you on the work that you've done in your community. So congratulations and best of luck the rest of the way here.
Thanks, Lou.